What is up? It's Dave and Duncan back from Metal Epidemic. And we are thrilled to be joined by our good friend Mark Norgate from UK prog band Dawnwalker. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you. How are you guys?
Very well. All the better for having you here, Mark.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me for the, 17th time now?
I know. We're just joking about that like it's now an annual thing where we meet up at the same time every year. We spoke to you.
I don't think we feel great, actually, about a year looking back on it if we haven't had a chance to chat to you. I think there's like we've unfinished business.
Yeah.
Hey, as long as I'm not boring you and repeating myself, then we're all good.
I mean, we finally got to meet last December in Glasgow when we were overjoyed to take in a wee live show, which we genuinely thought we were going to have to relocate to London or something to check you guys out. So we were overjoyed when you got up, but you had hinted about something, and that maybe in a pat like. We didn't know if you were being serious. We don't know like how far things were away, but you kind of planted the seeds that maybe something creative was brewing in the background.
Yeah, and, that was right on the jumping off point. I was like, shit, when we get back from tour, I'm going to push the go button. Right, let's go.
And lo and behold, mere months later, you have a brand new album out. So congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, some people say that I work fast. It feels very slow to me, but anyway.
You did I think at the time when we spoke to you, did hint like it was going to be something different, but it didn't give too much away. So I mean, I feel like we should kind of start there and find out more about like the decision, like not to include any Elvis songs in this album.
Well, I couldn't think of a good one to cover that tied into the concept. So.
And Danzig's covered them all at this rate. So
his estate contacted me and were like, "Don't ever do that shit again." So.
Well, how much like because you obviously like I say you had you kind of planted the seeds that there was something coming. How much of that at that point was already kind of creatively scoped out, so to speak, storyboarded from a musical fashion, and how much of and we're going to talk about sound change direction, but how much of that is pre-planned and how much of that just settles in once the writing process starts?
Yeah, I mean, I remember speaking to you guys, and I probably sounded like I was being really coy, and I didn't want to give anything away, but it was it was just like teetering on the verge of like I had these songs. I was like, is this an album? I don't know. Like, I kind of feel ready, but at the same time, I don't know what it is yet, kind of thing. And like, yeah, I definitely I'd say it was like 60% of the way there, right. But then the final push like happened quite quickly. And yeah, I remember I was thinking like, there was a few people I wanted to work with and I hadn't asked them yet, kind of thing. From that point, it could have gone off in a number of different directions, to be honest. It was like just deciding what it was at that point. And yeah, I'm still not sure what it is, to be honest.
That's interesting. Like, so from your perspective, like you've got the shell of the songs are like the main throng, but I hadn't actually considered this. Your choice of what musicians come in on that project could, in essence, change that finished product. You know what I mean? You're not writing bass lines to hand to a bass player or writing drum parts to hand to a drummer. You're kind of crafting songs and they're them inputting their interpretation of what you're writing. Is that safe to say, or is that maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I demo a lot, and like I'm not a drummer or a bass player, so like my versions are kind of as written by the guitarist kind of parts as every band is familiar with. I want a drum part that goes like this, and then the drummer's looking like, you what? But yeah, like just in giving a part to another human being with their own style and their own influences is going to approach it very differently. But also this time I was doing some stuff where, you know, like rhythms and stuff that I'd never used before. And like, you know, we had Luke playing bass and he brings a lot to the table, let's say. And Chris, the drummer, I was like, he might hear these songs and be like, what the fuck is this, dude? Like, it's kind of like swung sort of reggae beats. I don't know. He was like, do you know what, dude? Maybe I'll sit this one out or something. Like, so you just don't know. And like, there was a couple of people that I did want to get involved that it just didn't work out with or whatever. So like, yeah, it changes constantly. It changes like after the recording process has begun even. So yeah, I mean, I don't know where it's going. I wish I did have a master plan, but I don't.
Was this kind of style that you went for on this one, was it kind of pre-planned, or was it something that just kind of happened? This kind of move away from the kind of more post-metal and, blackened elements you had on previous releases. Was that something you were like consciously trying to move away from, or did it just kind of turn out that way?
I guess it was conscious in a way. It's just where my head was at, I think. It was kind of like what I've been listening to a lot over the last few years. It's definitely seeping. I listen to a lot of like ambient music and like music that barely exists kind of thing. And like, and a lot of the songs actually always, even since, 10, 12 years ago kind of thing, they start out as these really quiet, atmospheric little, I don't know, ambient noodles. And then I sort of add bits and then add vocals. And then I'm like, oh, fuck, it's a song. Shit. So yeah, I don't know. It's just what comes out of my brain. It's sounds that I'm interested in. And yeah, there's definitely at this point, there's an urge to sort of do something that feels new or novel in a certain way, where I'll sometimes get halfway through writing a song and feel like, I've written this one before. It's like, this one goes to the side. But then you got this other thing, and like, what the fuck is this weird idea? I don't know what this is. I'm interested in this one. So those are the ones that get followed through on, I guess.
Because like musically as well, the style that you're dabbling in now, I think we spoke about this in the review, I think it lends a lot more to your melody, your choice of melody. I personally feel that your vocal melodies are the strongest they've ever been on this release, and they really shine through. Like the attention to detail in what you're actually singing is the nuance is kind of breathtaking. Once again, like approaching that, is that just by habit of choice? These songs are quieter, so I kind of have to focus down into, really honing the melodic cadence that I have here, or once again, is that a case of the easy thing to do on this section here would be to kind of circumvent expectation and do a blackened scream, but yeah, it's maybe not for this song here.
Yeah, it's just the mood I was in, I think. There were, on the demos, there were screams in places, not many. There was a few. There was like a bit more of a riffy bit. And like, honestly, people, like even the guys that I know that heard them, that are more sort of metal guys, like, actually, you don't need that bit. It's probably better without it kind of thing. And you probably have a bit of an identity crisis at some point where you're halfway between the previous record and the next one, and you're trying to figure out what this one is. And like, do I need this song? Should this song have been on the last record? Should it be on the next one after this kind of thing? So yeah, it was just drilling down into that idea and focusing. I was definitely much more interested in vocals and melodies. I remember to begin with, I was like, a lot of the songs came from these just like really simple vocal ideas, little loops and humming and ahs, and they just grew from there. So the vocals, were paramount this time.
I get the feeling that, like, with this one, although the tracks were like formed before recording and demoed and stuff, that there was maybe that kind of spark of creativity during the recording to add and kind of elevate certain parts, especially with the kind of lineup of musicians that you had. How much was added during the recording process, and were there any songs in the album that kind of turned out better than you imagined because of those like extra touches, I suppose?
Well, they turned out very different, definitely. I haven't gone back and listened to the demos, and I dare not to, because usually you remember them being really good, and then you listen and you're like, oh God, oh no. So, I mean, the obvious thing is like the rhythm section this time is like completely different for us, much more bass focused. The drums are very unusual. We were shooting the video for Capricorn, and I was filming Chris, and like I noticed stuff that he was playing that like you feel it on the, but you're not necessarily conscious of it being there. All these little ghost notes and stuff that he was adding, little flams in play. I was like, fucking hell. Like, I didn't even know that was there. There's lots of little details and stuff like that that I think will come through on repeat listens. Yeah. And yeah, Sophia added a lot as well. Like we didn't have a ton of time in the studio, but she brought a lot to the table. It's the first time we've had a lyricist other than myself contribute anything to a record. So yeah, it's great. It's, half planning and half magic, really.
Yeah, we spoke about Sophia and Lurin like a couple of months ago. We were reviewing that album. We were blown away with her vocals on that release.
Yeah, that album's a ripper.
Yeah,
it's out of nowhere as well. We keep talking about this. Not that I want to shame the band. It's my favorite kind of pre-release we've ever received. Just one long track. Like it was literally just one giant track, and I'm notorious for not reading PR. So because of the stuff we get in, I genuinely didn't know. I was like, this is just like one long single. They're never going to be able to do this live. But like the work in that is nuts. You mentioned magic, and I'd be remiss from kind of touching on the kind of alchemy behind the stuff you're doing here. Like it reminded me when I was listening to for those that watch what we do, I'm a huge horror fan, right? And there's a certain subgenre of horror that I love, which is folk horror, specifically the stuff from the 70s. And it kind of feels peppered in here, whether consciously or unconsciously. I kind of get the feeling that the landscape plays a part in this. I for some reason whimsically imagine you on a train traveling through the English countryside coming up with ideas. It just has that feel that there's a very kind of like fog mist on the grass sort of feel, kind of something beyond the trees element. And I had picked that out before Dave was like, oh yeah, it's incorporating things like occultism, alchemy, etc. Those themes interest you beyond the writing, or was it just this would be an interesting topic to cover on this particular release?
They definitely interest me. I've always been into that sort of stuff. I used to, like, especially when I was 20-ish, I used to read a lot of Aleister Crowley and I had a tarot deck and all that sort of stuff. Like this time round, I got really into astrology, like really into it. Not because I believe in it, because I find it incredibly interesting that this sort of there's something about it that just seems to speak to the whole human superstition and religiosity of how we are as a people, and like the early sciences or the pre-science days, like people literally like looking up at the stars and mapping them down on bits of paper and trying to extrapolate some sort of meaning about the universe from it. I was just like, I went big down that rabbit hole.
And in terms of how that works its way into your lyrics, are you literally in that rabbit hole and going, that's a really interesting concept, here's my storytelling of that? Or is it more that's an interesting idea to play with, let's see how it expands?
Yeah, I went like astrology is just one example. I guess the rabbit hole is like this sort of esoteric religion kind of thing, like the things that people believe about how and why we're alive and what it all means kind of thing. And like the major religions, enough has been said, I think. Yeah. And also it's such a huge topic. I wouldn't even know where to begin broaching it. But like stuff that's more in my wheelhouse is like, I read a biography of L. Ron Hubbard, which was like a huge influence on this. Some Carlos Castaneda, you know that guy, 60s, 70s, like new age guy, a lot of new age stuff. And was really interested in why it's had such a comeback in the last 50 or 60 years, kind of thing.
It's because I'm very much like yourself. It's an itch that I like to scratch, specifically when it comes to human behavior. And it's, you could get lost in it. That kind of the rebelling of the kind of 50s into the 60s, and that idea of trying to reinvent what religion is around the ideals of kind of free sex, love, drugs, etc. And then the backlash that comes out of that in the 70s, where everything kind of ties down, and then you go into the 80s and you're into like mass hysteria, satanic panic, video nasties, censorship, and then we've kind of went full, like you say, we've kind of went full circle again, where Scientology's weirdly cool, and you're like,
is it?
like they don't appear to be going away, like, which is to me once you kind of burst the bubble of what's at the center of that, which is Xenu and aliens and all the rest, and you're like, is that you think at that point people would taper off, but there are as many people there in that religion as there was. They haven't lost as much as people thought, and there's many people there. So there's that idea of clinging on to something. I wonder how much of that is when you put yourself so far into something that there's a tipping point where if you actually reject it, you have to then admit yourself that you have for years essentially been fooled. And some people are incapable of doing that.
Well, I hate to say it, but you just kind of hit the nail on the head of what the album is about.
There we go.
It's like there's a lot of that in it. There's a few songs that are really about that, like that tipping point where it becomes like an all-encompassing thing, which you now can no longer not believe. You're stuck in that mindset now, like forever. And that's, I kind of wish I was like that. I kind of wish I had something.
I'm the same. I have
to believe in.
I have zero belief in like anything,
yeah,
and
same.
Well, like half of my family is very devout religious, and it's just I see how peaceful they are with everything, and I see how restless I am with absolutely everything. Right. I'm kind of like just a little bit of that in my life would make me, I don't know, grounded a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to believe that we live in a hostile universe that has no inherent meaning, and like we're here today and gone tomorrow kind of thing. It's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Fine, all right. People want something to believe in, I guess.
Yeah. I think when we were chatting last December, I think at that point you were kind of booking dates for recording and stuff like that. And you said you had some ideas in terms of how it was going to be recorded. Now, like with the album being out and stuff, we know that it was recorded over, was it 3 kind of different separate studios? Is that right?
Yeah.
Was that the kind of idea that you had back then, or was it something else? Or
no, absolutely not. No, the 3 studios thing, it makes us sound like fucking Fleetwood Mac or something. It's ridiculous. It's not quite as bad as it sounds. It's just like, so I remember when we were chatting, my idea back then was I was going to go to Holy Mountain, where we did do the bulk of this one. And we were going to track the album there, basically do all the drums, bass, vocals, not vocals, drums, bass, guitars, yada, yada. And then the other half of it, I was going to do at home with like really cheap, shitty synths and make it sound like a 90s computer game or something like that. And so you'd have this melding of hi-fi and lo-fi world kind of thing.
That's right, yeah.
That was the idea, but I completely lost faith in it. And people were like, no, do it properly. Go to a proper studio. Don't use these shit VST synths. They sound bad. So it didn't end up working out. But the 3 studios thing was, yeah, we did the bulk of it at Holy Mountain. And, that is most of the record, to be honest. And then the vocals we did in Manchester with Joe at No Studio, which is near to where Sophia is, and it just made sense to do it there. That was like, and Joe's great at doing vocals and having a relaxing environment to do it with. And then Scott was finishing the album anyway. He was mixing it, and he had a studio full of synths, and I just wanted to go to Edinburgh and play around with some keyboards and give everything over to him, and then go, here you go, makes sense of all this.
So, like, I know Scott is obviously in Healthy Living and Ashenspire.
Yeah.
Who you played with Healthy Living when we saw you in December. Did you already know him from before, or was that from that tour that you kind of became friends? Or
yeah, no, I mean, I knew Ashenspire before, and I liked that record. Right. And when we were doing this tour, like, we can't really tour by ourselves. So we were thinking it was a bit of a one-off mad thing for us that we just can't really do. But we were just like, fuck it, let's just for once we'll just book a tour and go.
Yeah.
And I was really thinking about bands that I want to tour with that not typical post-metal kind of bands that we usually get booked with. And I was really thinking about bands from London and surrounding areas and like probably limiting myself too much about that. And then I sent Scott a message. I found the Healthy Living album through Bandcamp and I was like mind blown. I didn't know how I didn't know about it already. Just like so far up my street. It's ridiculous. And I sent Scott a message about playing a show together in Glasgow or something. And Healthy Living is split between Edinburgh and Germany. So they were like, for us to play shows, we kind of have to play a bunch of shows to make it worthwhile. So I was like, fuck it, let's do the whole tour. It'll be great. Let's go. And they're like, those guys are really just very DIY minded and they were up for it. Even though I was booking it and I clearly didn't know what I was doing. So credit to them.
I see. So that's how you and Scott ended up then working on the new album.
Yeah, and we didn't know each other super well, and we were just chatting at shows and stuff. And like Scott obviously mixed the Ashenspire record and the Healthy Living record, and like did at least some or most of the recording on those as well. So I was like, I have an idea developing here. I'd also had an idea that the album was going to be a bit more 3-piece sounding, one guitar rather than filling every space with guitars as usually ends up happening on heavy records. So I don't know, it just made some kind of cosmic sense, I guess. It was just magical accident.
So, like, when you, like, because you obviously had that idea of going, the melding of hi-fi and lo-fi, I'm wondering if, like, when I want to try something, right, and I don't do it because I generally put it off, it doesn't go away. If anything, it just niggles at me until I do it. Are you the same creatively? And if so, does that mean that somewhere down the road you may, against the wishes of everyone you speak to that says it's a terrible idea, say, you know what, I'm gonna take a punt. Is it something that you're still kind of toying with, even if it doesn't make it in a full album, make it on more of a demo or something along those lines?
Oh, absolutely. One day I'll make my like Burzum prison album where it's all like dodgy MIDI trumpets and stuff.
He went like, I remember the first time I heard that as well, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Just like, well, oh yeah, he's a murderer, but what the fuck is
this? Yeah, no, there's also, aside from, I mean, the album I keep threatening to make, which makes all my bandmates sort of wince and go like, oh no, he's talking about it again, is like the entirely home recorded album that probably doesn't have real drums on it, maybe no real guitars. It's a lot more sort of keys and programming based, and I could just hear my bandmates like,
I'm saying, Mark, as a guy that is very much into synthesizers, plays synthesizers, what I'm telling you is just do it. They'll come around. Yeah. They'll come around in the end. Just do it. You'll feel better about yourself.
It will happen eventually. I don't know if it'll be the next thing that happens, but one day it'll be there.
I mean, I suppose, like, whilst you're talking about that, because you've kind of opened the door to new things on this album, which, like, you could expand on going forward in the next release, but because your back catalogue also has that, you know, bits of post-metal and bits of black metal, you could really venture anywhere on the next release, and I think fans would still be open to it. So
yeah, like, Dawnwalker's like a genre now. You know what I mean? Like, you're listening to Dawnwalker. You're not listening to black metal, death metal. You listen to Dawnwalker because you're invested in the oeuvre. You know what I mean? So can really go anywhere. Hip hop, maybe not. I'm just saying, unless you have that itch. But like where. Not like the albums, we did this last time as well. I think your album had not long come out, more like that. Where's next, Mark? You're like, I've just put out an album. We're like, but when's the next one coming out? Like, how much, like, so you obviously, this is out your system. So you've given birth, so to speak, on the album. Like, creatively, once that's out, how much of a break do you give yourself? Because I remember you saying you never really switch off from being a writer, but like there's a difference between just like, you know, coming up with ideas and whatnot and then actually starting to think about conceptually what is coming next and how that even sounds. And from what you were saying, your demos sound, they're in the same sort of vein, but the end product's maybe not where you start with. Is that something you even consider at this stage, or is that like, might
always
as well be 2 years from now? So
yeah, but it takes basically 2 years to make a record. So it's not like you sit around for 2 years and then start thinking, shit, I should start making another record soon. It's like I'm always like coming up with ideas and stuff. But you're absolutely right. It's when you get enough ideas that seem to start naturally joining together. You're like, shit, we got a project going here, lads. Like, let's go, kind of thing. And then you really get into like full steam ahead kind of mode. But yeah, it's funny you say that. A lot of reviews and feedback we've got on this time, people have been like, it's Dawnwalker, that's what they, you just go with it, whatever genre. Because I was sort of resigned to the fact that people were going to not like this album, and I was fine with it. Like, honestly, like, might sound a certain way, but I was like, I've made an album that I really like and I'm proud of. I know nobody's going to like it, but I like it. So, and it's the album I wanted to make, pretty much. So,
yeah,
I can live with it.
I don't know. I always get confused. Me and Dave have endless discussions about how intelligent listeners are, just in general in music. Your proper consumer, how intelligent are they when it comes to their choices in music? I don't know if we're that. I don't know if we're ever going to be over the they've sold out because they're singing on an album where the previous album was all blast beats. But I like to think that when fans attach themselves to a band nowadays, there's a pool of them in there that will have trust and faith in the artist behind it. That's the bit they're going for. You know what I mean? It's not just that because anyone can connect with something. Anyone can like something they can't connect with, right? Like you hear it, pop radio is a great example of that. God knows how many songs I'll have dropping off my 10-year-old, and she knows who it is, and I don't know who it is. But I'm singing it for the rest of the day because that that chorus is in there and it's earwormy and whatnot. But I'm not sure I'm going out to buy the album. Whereas, like in the Dawnwalker world, we've reviewed 3 albums now, and if you were to tell me that it was 3 different bands, I could probably pick out similar. I could pick out your voice, but they are 3 different like ideas, like birthed out in album form. That I think like your fans are like. I think they're smart enough to go with that. Like, and I think an educated reviewer should be okay to go with that as well. And I also think there's a lot of bands that are path. The amount of black metal bands that have become weird ambient. You mentioned Burzum, that weird one, but so a lot of bands that seem to dabble. They go, it's extremes. They go from one extreme, and the older they get, they find themselves in a completely different environment doing something very different. I don't think the jumps are as massive with Dawnwalker. It almost feels like you're setting up like a weird. There's a map in every album kind of teasing an idea of where things might go. And this one, I mean, is a lot shorter than the very first Dawnwalker album we heard. But you were already you'd already set us up so that the jump isn't that huge, because the previous album, like House of Sand, like when we listened to that, we were like, all right, it's like there's a pivot here and there's a change, but it's really, really good. So I kind of feel like if you're a fan, it's not as if one album is EDM and the next one's, death metal. Like you kind of put the breadcrumbs follow through there, that everything kind of feels like the next logical step, even if we as listeners haven't thought of that yet. That makes sense.
And yeah, absolutely. And I honestly, like, if it came out so fucking different, I'd call it something else. Like, I wouldn't put it out if it didn't feel like it fit within the like that mold kind of thing. It needs to be the next evolution of it. But I'm not trying. You know, we do sometimes get accused of genre hopping or whatever. too many cooks in the kitchen or something. I don't know, but like. For me, there's absolutely a through line in it. Sometimes I will talk too much of a big game about how different it is, and then mates will be like, "No, it sounds like what you always sound like." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was different. All right, fair enough." But yeah, you always think about it, and I'm definitely thinking about the next step right now. And I have ideas, and I've always got little things on the back burner, but you have to know what the right play is, I think.
Yeah.
For myself and like the direction of the project. Like, I mean, the idea of selling out is so fucking stupid anyway. Like, I mean,
what is selling out? Go and tell me in today's day and age. In today's day and age, like what is selling out? Like albums sell less than they've ever sold. So
yeah,
I don't
all
know
fucking
what that
broke.
is.
Like,
yeah,
selling out what? Like,
yeah.
And also, like, if I put out an album full of blast beats and screams, there's like 10 million bands doing that. It's not like we'd be doing something drastically different to what's going on. It's like more bands are like that than not. So I don't know. I think with House of Sand, I had a thought in my head, whereas I sort of allowed myself to write pop songs, which I didn't used to like doing. I wouldn't allow myself to go verse, chorus, verse, and now I don't feel so bad about it. But I was like, if I am going to write pop songs, I want to write weird pop songs. And I think that's something which is still stuck in my head quite a lot. It's like, how can I write pop but make it weird and prog and Kate Bush like?
Love it.
Yeah. Speaking of Kate Bush, no, I'm just kidding.
How are you segueing this?
I'm just kidding. No, actually, there was a reference made on the review. We'll just bring this up just now.
He's been dying. Honestly, you've no idea, Mark. He's been dying.
I know.
He's been dying to get this. He's been dying not only to get out, but like he wants validation on how smart he is.
No, not at all.
Oh no, not that. We're going to get to that. Right?
No, I'm just my interest was piqued because I made that reference off the cuff that that certain track, I think it was Capricorn, had a slight kind of reggae kind of feel to it, and the kind of rhythm of the guitars and stuff, and a little bit of kind of reverb and stuff, and then maybe dropped in a little Pato Banton joke, just for shits and giggles. But then afterwards, you did message to say actually that reference is not that far off.
Yeah, I think what it was, I was listening to like. It's kind of like my childhood. It's like this 90s pop that had this like tropical sort of slightly reggae vibe, like Ace of Base. I was absolutely rinsing the Ace of Base first album while I was writing this. And I think that's probably come through a bit. And I was listening to a bunch of that, and that Pato Banton UB40 song did come up on my playlist more than once. I had that CD single when I was a kid. That was like, I don't know. It's like, it feels like my childhood, that kind of stuff.
Subconsciously, see, it must have been in there.
There you go. And there was some like synth sounds and stuff where people would go, oh, that's a bit too Enya or something. That one's a bit. I'm like, no, that's what I want. Like, that's I want Enya.
Like, Enya secretly is into folk horror. Watch her music videos. Like, I'm watching them, I'm like, I have no idea how this relates at all to Orinoco Flow, but I'm in it right now, and it's trippy.
I love a bit of Enya.
Oh, you and me both? Enya's my chill-out music. Like, Enya's like I have chronic insomnia, so I'll do a lot of things at night because my brain won't switch off, but I will always make some time, at least once a week, to run some Enya. And she is a multi-millionaire apparently who lives in an Irish castle with her cats. And I'm like, you know what, Enya, you fucking earned it. You've earned it.
Enya,
yeah, and
Dave's unsure.
But it's just you can it's not exactly that, but you can probably hear it on the album. It's like the vocal pads and like the layers and the synths,
like the synths particularly have that kind of soft touch that she uses through her music.
It's not quite that, but that was the influence, I think.
Love it.
I don't know what my chill out music is just now. It changes from time. I still go back to 40 Watt Sun quite a lot when I'm in that kind of.
I mean, it's perfect for that.
Yeah, that's really good.
Their new album, if you've not heard it yet, is absolutely fucking really good. Great.
No, okay,
so,
fine.
I recommend. But that's another one that I don't be like, I'm getting ready to go out. Let's shove on some 40. No, it's like I need to decompress right now. 40 Watt Sun.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Sorry, on you got
a question. I was going to say, right. So obviously, when we saw you, Luke was, I think the kids call it slapping the bass on stage for how do you say it? I don't know. Reggae. Someone mentioned reggae, so it just jumped in my head. So he was already playing with you, which, by the way, like phenomenal stage presence, phenomenal bass player. Had you already spoken to him at that point? Because you were saying that you were trying to fit the pieces. Like, when did that conversation for some new material here? Like, I'm free, you're free. Maybe we, buddy up. Was it there at that point, or was it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I was actually years ago. Another band I play in, Sacred Sun. Mm-hmm. The UK's premier one-man black metal outfit. We played a show with Pupil Slicer like years and years ago, and met Luke then. Like, just follow each other on Instagram and stuff. I didn't know him super well, but he'd post these videos of him like jamming along to like a hip hop track or whatever. I was like, fucking hell! I like wasn't expecting that, and like some funk stuff and like some really unusual shit, and then. He messaged me, I think, first saying, I know that it's kind of like a revolving door project if you ever want to collaborate on some stuff. He's like, I can't really do tours or shows kind of thing, but if you want to work on songs or whatever, we can get... So I messaged him and go, do you want to come on tour with us? We've got no bass player. And he was like, let me see if I can work it out kind of thing. And it did, and it worked. And then it just made sense to have him involved on the album. I knew when I was demoing it that the bass was going to have much more of a presence this time, and I wanted kind of more melodic bass lines with a lot more movement in them. And he's the guy to go to for that. So it just I don't know. Again, it just sort of worked out. It's all it's more accident than it is design, but somehow.
Or it's all in the stars, Mark.
Oh.
Just saying. Someone called it. Someone was like, I think you'll find Aquarius is ascending right now, so Mark will have Luke playing bass on the next Dawnwalker album. So
there you go.
And Sophia as well, obviously her, like, I thought the kind of the two vocals together, yours and her voice together, was absolutely brilliant on the album. How did that collaboration come out, and did you know Sophia, or?
No, actually, on that tour we played in Manchester, and again we were trying to like look for really interesting bands that we thought would like complement the lineups, rather than just being like, these guys are big on the scene, post metal band, and they play a show every 3 days or whatever. So let's get them down. Like, and Death Bloom had played a show with Pine, which is Joe from No Studios band, which I was gonna go to, and then ended up seeing that tour in London instead of in Manchester. But I checked out Death Bloom, that first single they had out, Purgatory Unknown. I thought it was fucking mint. So yeah, I just reached out to them, asked them to play the show. Got chatting to Sophia. She sent me some of her music outside of Death Bloom, like her solo stuff. It's all really fucking cool. And yeah, I just asked her if she'd be up for it, and she killed it.
Nice.
There you go. So if you had not, is it safe to say, had you not went on that, had you not done the thing that you don't usually do, which is put yourself in a position where you booked a UK tour, this album would be completely different?
Probably, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fate.
And, it was when we got back from tour, like tour was, is booking shows, and your life just becomes emails and admin and stuff like that. And the shows were really fun. And when we got back, I just really wanted to hit the ground running on like a creative project. I can't wait. Some stuff people we've wanted to work with before in the past are like, yeah, I'd love to do it like in 6 months' time. And I'm like, no, I have to do it now. It's like burning a hole in my brain right now. I have to get it out somehow. So yeah.
But you do have a couple of shows booked, don't you?
Yeah. We got a London show and a Manchester show in December, and we're gonna start looking at maybe summer shows next year. Maybe try and get a little mini tour going or something. But we'll get these shows done, and then we'll throw ourselves into that. I'd like to try and get on some festivals next year.
That's 100%. Like, if I was you, but I would definitely get out there and grab some of that, because this stuff's going to sound fucking huge.
Yeah, I'm really bad at putting ourselves out there. Getting better at it with the records, but with live and what the live scene is like at the minute. Everybody's like shitting themselves, and people are cancelling stuff left, right, and centre. Nobody wants to take a risk on a band kind of thing. So it's pretty rough out there right now. But hopefully we'll get some stuff going for next year.
Nice. Looking forward to it. Well, Mark, I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight, but thanks so much for coming on and chatting about the new album. The Unknowing is out now. You can check it out. I'll put links below so people can have a listen to it on Bandcamp and all the kind of, well, not all the streaming platforms, so I say, but Bandcamp
most of them.
Most of them. So people can check it out. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on, and I'm sure we'll do this again same time next year.
Next year has to be like, otherwise, Dave, like, I don't know about you, I'll get antsy. I'll not feel good about myself, and then I'll just get nervous and sleep less than I already do. So it's always a pleasure chatting to you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having me back. It's always nice to chat to you.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to maybe add in a Scottish date on that kind of tour, I mean, that's fine as well. I'm happy to see you twice next year.
Working on it.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'll take that. Thanks so much. As I said, all links below. Check it out. Have a listen to the new Dawnwalker album. It is out now.